What up, though? Oklahoma Historical Society. So the only thing I really knew about Oklahoma, and possibly still do, is about what they term as Black Wall Street. And I guess people call it Black Wall Street because people who are termed Black Americans um, was doing for self. They was making stuff. They was taking care of themselves. Regular schmegular degular stuff. Today, I guess we consider it monumental in contrast to not taking care of yourself. Yeah, a lot of people, a lot of us, we like babies, depending on someone else for everything. So, Oklahoma, all I've known about Oklahoma is that it was a place that, where it was considered Black Wall Street, an area where so called blacks, which is properly American Indians or Americans, built a thriving community, as they did in other places, because we also know that there were many places that in more modern times were called, quote, black, end quote, Wall Streets. For instance, like the place where Pig Meat Markham was from, Durham, North Carolina. He was from, I guess, Haiti, North Carolina. Durham, North Carolina also was called Black Wall Street. Oklahoma Historical Society, 1890. 1890, the year that it said that a lot of the census records from that year were burned. It's also a year where I think they started using the race designations of octoroon and quadroon. 1890 Oklahoma Territorial Census, and Oklahoma is known as Native American Territory or Indian Territory, but we know it's more properly federal territory, Native American settlements. Of course, we know about lines on a map. They really don't mean nothing. All of it's America, but, just for context. Most of the 1890 U.S. federal census was destroyed by fire in 1921, making the 1890 Oklahoma territorial census one of the few remaining census records from the time. The Oklahoma Historical Society houses the original 1890 census pages. So I guess they weren't destroyed. It says the Oklahoma Historical Society houses the original 1890 census pages. Now, is that the census pages for the entire America or North America? What is termed North America? The United States? I'll have to look into that. Very, very interesting. Oklahoma Historical Society Research Center. I mean, listen. I mean, don't take that lightly. If you're someone who does genealogy, if you're someone who's into genealogy, searching out your family through records and as well as speaking to family members, then this is important because of, again, most of the 1890 U.S. federal census was destroyed by fire in 1921. The Oklahoma Historical Society houses the original 1890 census pages. I'm gonna have to look into that. Oklahoma Historical Society Research Center. African American History Research Guide. And as we know, there's no such thing as an African American. Okay. You're either one or the other. And then if you're one or the other, they're still very vague. Like, for instance, Africa, African. What does that mean? That's a huge portion of soil. We know it's connected to Europe and Asia. It's all one landmass. But the place that is termed Africa, it's a huge portion, a huge soil portion. And we know that if you go by lines on the map, there are 54 countries. In each of those countries, you have millions of people or hundreds of thousands of people. And those people have people. They'll tell you they came from somewhere. The name that they give you, I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be African. Then we have American. Well, that's from the top of Canada to the bottom of Argentina and all the islands, the surrounding islands. So if you're from America, if your people are from America, guess what? Your people specifically will tell you they're from a particular portion or place in America. And their people, their ancestors called themselves something. And maybe it wasn't American. See? Two very vague terms. Black history is Oklahoma history. See, we talked about the Black Wall Street. Now it's black history. There's no such thing as a black. Black means, close your eyes, man. That's black. African American newspapers on microfilm. The research center houses the largest collection of Oklahoma newspapers in the state. Listed below are titles and founding dates of publications in the OHS archives. Remember, African American newspapers on microfilm. There's no such thing as an African American, so who are we speaking of? We are speaking of Americans or American Indians. You see, it says at the top, African American history. Black history is Oklahoma history. American Indian history is Oklahoma history, of course, because it's America. These are a few of the newspapers on microfilm. Ardmore, 1901. Guthrie, Oklahoma Guide, 1892. Oklahoma Safeguard, 1894. Langston City Herald, 1891. Just a few. I more or less wanted to name the earlier ones. Historic places, historic all black towns. No such thing as a black. So we're speaking of the American Indians, the Americans, and again, American Indian. Americans are very vague and broad terms, but historically, these are the people of this soil portion, you, me, your family, your people. I don't like the word family, really. Learn about historic all black towns. This is as Kudameo says, the hijack, the black. No such thing as a black town. Remember, we're speaking of human beings. Okay? In 1891, your people wasn't calling each other black. Come on, man. They just wasn't. Learn about historic all black towns in the Encyclopedia of Oklahoma History and Culture. The Oklahoma History Center also offers traveling exhibits about all black towns. They keeping a lie alive with traveling exhibits. They get to write the narrative. And it ain't just people who you term as white. No, it's people who look like you. Keeping you blind, deaf, and dumb is big business. Manuscript archives. The Oklahoma Historical Society manuscript archives contain paper items including letters, scrapbooks, and journals, personal or business related records and correspondence, brochures, and ephemera. The collections listed here include a variety of materials pertaining to Black history in Oklahoma or non existent history in Oklahoma. So, who history is it? It's your ancestors' history. The U.S. Bureau of Refugees, freedmen or free men, and abandoned lands, or the Freedmen's Bureau or Freeman's Bureau or Freedmen's Bureau, we spoke about this in previous shows, was created by the U.S. government to assist formerly enslaved people. The Bureau was established in the 11 rebel states, 3 border states, Washington, D.C., and Indian Territory in March 1865, the year where it says that slavery was abolished, right? You no longer had to work. It ceased to exist in the summer of 1872, but it's much more complex than just not working. We have like human trafficking and things like this, kidnapping, all these things from the beginning of foreigners landing on our shores. It ceased to exist in the summer of 1872. During its operation, the Bureau provided resources for African Americans, including legalizing marriages, reuniting family members, and recording genealogical information. Legalizing marriages. Like you need somebody to legalize your relationship. In Indian Territory, agents of the Freedmen's Bureau experienced difficulties. Freedmen in the territory generally had close relationships with native nations. When new treaties were negotiated with the 5 tribes after the Civil War, the Bureau ceased operations, therefore cutting funding for education and assimilation efforts. The Freedmen's Bureau records have been microfilmed and are available at the National Archives. Various institutions are currently indexing the records, which will make them more accessible to researchers. Family Search currently offers access to Freedmen's Bureau marriage records at familysearch.org. I am thankful for familysearch.org. It's a good resource. Oklahoma Historical Society, 1896 applications for enrollment. 1896 applications for enrollment. For years, the 1896 enrollment of the members of the 5 tribes has created issues for genealogists. These records pertain to the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Muskogee Creek, and Seminole tribes. The 1896 enrollment was done at the insistence of the Dawes Commission in an effort to determine tribal citizenship. Some individuals and families were enrolled by the federal courts, which did not have the jurisdiction to determine who was a citizen and who was not. Many non-citizens were included, who were in fact intruders residing with a tribe. The census and enrollment of 1896 was disregarded and was not used as a basis for enrollment. In June 1898, Congress passed the Curtis Act and authorized an act theater and authorized the Dawes Commission to create new citizenship rolls. The 1896 enrollments were scrapped due to inaccurate data. They were scrapped. Why? Because the circus began. The theater started. Unfortunately, individuals who had citizenship conferred by the federal courts were not notified that their citizenship had been overturned. No, you had to attend the circus in order to know that it was happening. The Sun, New York newspaper, Sunday, July 3rd, 1898. Remember, we just talked about 1898. And we spoke about In June 1898, Congress passed the Curtis Act and authorized the Dawes Commission to create new citizenship roles. Congress passed the Curtis Act. The theater began. The 1896 enrollments were scrapped. All those who had enrolled in 1896 was scrapped due to inaccurate data. Unfortunately, individuals who had citizenship conferred by the federal courts were not notified that their citizenship had been overturned. They were scrapped due to inaccurate data. Yeah, data that didn't go with what was taking place. The Sun, New York newspaper, Sunday, July 3rd, 1898. Stories told in Tampa's camp. Army officers, by way of diversion, enliven evenings with tales. Tampa, Florida, June 26. Camp life here has brought out many stories told after nightfall in groups around tents of various officers. Such a group was gathered before the tent of a bronzed and bearded cavalry captain a few evenings ago. Besides the host, whose army record extended back to the Civil War, there was another captain, a West Pointer, graduated early in the 70s, a jolly little man who would rather fight than eat, so his comrades say. There were two first lieutenants, one from West Point and one from the ranks, and two second lieutenants from civil life. Somebody had just asked the bearded captain to tell how he came to enter the army. You, gentlemen, who have served in southwestern Texas, began the jolly West Point captain, have seen the Seminole Negro Indian. Okay, so we know there's no such thing as a Negro. And I believe Seminole, if you look it up, it loosely means the same thing. And so who are we talking about? We talking about Americans. We talking about American Indians. We're not going to go over Negro again. We're not going to talk about why they have to call you a Negro. We know that. You, gentlemen, who have served in southwestern Texas, began the jolly West Point captain, have seen the Seminole Negro Indian Scouts in the early 80s. When he say early 80s, he mean 1800s. When I was a lieutenant, my regiment was stationed at Old Fort Clark and was assigned to command these same scouts, the Seminole Negro Indians. It always, when they talking about us, it's always multiple descriptions or designations or labels, just like today. They were a motley crowd, half Negro, half Indian. No, they were American, half Negro, half Indian. What does that even mean? And a glance over their muster rolls would reveal such euphonious names as Ben July, Pompey Perryman, Jim Warrior, and Friday Bowlegs. Now, see, these are real engines. You understand me? Like Wu-Tang Clan. Okay? Not none of that Gray Eagle. Okay? Running from Water Horse, or what's some I ain't gonna say Red Fox because you already know what time it is with Red Fox. But listen, Ben July, Pompey Perryman, Jim Warrior, and Friday Bowlegs, black as solid hunks of ebony, and as fond of whiskey as a baby is of milk. They were nevertheless the finest trailers and scouts on earth. Okay, fond of whiskey to our detriment. Yeah, my father succumbed to whiskey and is no longer here. Firewater, the illest weapon ever used. Southwestern Texas at that time was a pretty wild stretch of country. Hey, it could have got me as well. Southern Texas, but think about it. Everything you see about the these old peoples, as I call them, Anglo-Saxons, it's always the pretty glass of bourbon, right? Southwestern Texas at the time was a pretty wild stretch of country. Civilization stopped at San Antone. And the duty of these Negro Indians, or properly American Indians, was to keep that border free from smugglers, marauding parties, and hostile Indians, or other American Indians, right? Come on now. Seems that we was always a problem, no matter what side of the law we was on. Detroit Free Press, Detroit, Michigan newspaper, Sunday, July 3rd, 1898. Remember? Southwest, and we stand over in that part of the country, right? We was talking about Oklahoma first. Now we talking about Texas, right? Southwestern Texas at that time was a pretty wild stretch of country. Civilization stopped at San Antonio, and the duty of these Negro Indians, or properly American Indians, was to keep that border free from smugglers, marauding parties, and hostile Indians and other American Indians. Once every 4 months, they came to Clark for their money. Okay, most of y'all be thinking our people just was doing stuff and getting kicked in the ass. You know what I mean? Like, I have to ask people, you don't know a nigga today that's gonna stand for none of it. Why would you think your ancestors would? I mean, you come from somebody. Once every 4 months, they came to Clark for their money. They get paid. And then you will pardon the expression, gentlemen, there was hell to pay. Okay. The Houston Post, Houston, Texas, Tuesday, July 12th, 1910. The Houston Post newspaper, Houston, Texas, Tuesday, July 12th, 1910. Bullet killed Sullivan, Negro Indian victim of accidental shot on train, or properly American Indian. Your relatives, your family, your peoples, your ancestors. Houston Post special, Temple, Texas, July 11th. Joe Sullivan, a Negro Indian, or properly an American Indian, aged about 30 years, died last night on a Santa Fe train while en route from Brady to the Santa Fe Hospital in this city as a result of a pistol wound received Friday night. The shot was accidental, having been fired by one of the attendants in the company commissary at Brady by striking back the hammer of the pistol with the hammer he had reached for under the counter. The bullet passed through the heavy wood base of the counter and entered the man's abdomen. Train connection was missed at Brownwood, and the man died in sight of the hospital as the train was entering the city limits of Temple. Interment occurred here that day. The Chicago Defender, Chicago, Illinois, Saturday, December 12th, 1911. This is a year after the previous article that was in 1910, July 12th, 1910. This one is December 2nd, 1911, and it's coming from the Chicago Defender newspaper, Chicago, Illinois. Dr. Frissell, no doubt inspired by the increasing interest in the Hampton work in northern cities, spoke on racial cooperation with a master knowledge of the Negro Indian, or properly American Indian work. This broad-minded educator discussed the question in that convincing manner that wins interest and oftentimes support. Dr. Frissell is considered one of the best authorities upon educational and industrial conditions and has always championed the cause of the Negro in every way. Do you see how? He said, with the master knowledge of the Negro Indian, or properly the American Indian. And do you see how later he says Dr. Frissell is considered one of the best authorities upon educational industrial conditions and has always championed the cause of the Negro in every way? See how they removed the Indian? See how they removed the Indian? See how easy it is to black you out? Huh? Major R.R. Martin spoke on some phases of the Negro problem. See, now it's a Negro problem. It ain't a Negro Indian problem. And it ain't an American Indian problem. It's a Negro problem. Because you've been blacked out. The blacking out started early. And it continues to this day. Black man, black woman, black love. Come on, man. Propaganda has been simmering to a fine broth for a while. Major R.R. Martin spoke on some phases of the Negro problem. Although not laying any claim as an orator, the popular commander entertained the vast assemblage with the simple story of his race, interspersed here and there with the telling story or anecdote. He was applauded again and again and shared with the distinguished principal all the honors of the evening. Bristol Herald Courier, Bristol, Tennessee newspaper, Thursday, February 11th, 1932. Bristol Herald Courier, Bristol, Tennessee, Thursday, February 11th, 1932. At this point, one thing that I want you to notice is that your people wasn't shuffling around, scared for their life. Okay? The same way your people is today is the same way your people always been. About it. About that action, right? Bristol Herald Courier, Bristol, Tennessee newspaper, Thursday, February 11th, 1932. Suspect jailed in child murder. Zeal in proffering evidence leads to arrest of John Hugo. New York, February 10th. His zeal in proffering evidence to accuse a Negro Indian, or properly an American Indian. Do you understand that you ain't always been a Negro? And understand that Negro is just a label. It's not like a Negro act different from a nigger or a black or an American Indian or a colored or a mulatto. No, it's just labels that you've accepted. That's all. That you answer to. You don't have to. Something of a miracle comes with not answering a certain stuff and correcting people on just who you are, who your people is. The American, the only American that ever was, is, and will be. Let's shake it. His zeal in proffering evidence to accuse a Negro Indian, or properly an American Indian, of the slaying Thursday of 5-year-old Florence McDonald led to John Hugo's detention for questioning. in the case today and discovery. He has a long police record. While the district attorney said startling developments might result, detectives studied the scribbled writing on a postcard as the most available clue in a second attack and child killing, that of 13-year-old Marie Rosales, whose mutilated body was found in a bathtub in an unoccupied tenement last night. It's always been miserable and blissful people. Even Noah's, you understand, even American Indians was doing utterly despicable things, as some do today. See, you allow people to put you in a big group and to push the idea that that big group all think the same and they all are the same. But you yourself, you know that you as different from some of your family members or even your siblings as you are from a stranger. Hugo represented himself as a chaplain of a religious organization, Brooklyn, police said, but is really an employee. He volunteered information he had seen James Oliver Hicks, the Negro Indian or the American Indian suspected in the case, walking with Florence McDonald shortly before she disappeared. Two insurance agents told the district attorney they visited Hicks' house that day and found him ill in bed. He was released. Hugo's insistence on his story made police suspicious. His record revealed that 15 years ago, his gratuitous testimony helped convict a man named Cuccio, arrested in Italy. Hugo got free passage there as prosecution witness of the murder of Ruth Kruger in Manhattan. Cuccio later died in prison. Further into records showed Hugo had been convicted 6 times, 5 for burglary or larceny and 1 for assault, and that he had deserted from the United States Army, Navy, and from the Canadian Army. In the Marie Rosales case, a postcard addressed to the janitor of the tenement building where the body was found read, "Go to the top floor apartment. You will find something that will surprise you. It's a murder." The card was turned over to police by postal authorities and led to the discovery of the body submerged in water in the bathtub, her head crushed in. A dirty necktie was found in the hallway and an old suitcase was in the apartment. Marie was the daughter of a Mexican waiter, now in Detroit looking for a job. Her mother is dead and she has been living with an uncle and aunt. News Register, Fremont, California newspaper. News Register, Fremont, California newspaper. Tuesday, June 13th, 1967. June 13th, 1967. News Register, Fremont, California. The justices ruled unanimously that a Virginia law banning marriage between Negroes and whites was unconstitutional, thus nullifying similar statutes in 15 other states. The decision came in a case involving Richard P. Loving, a white construction worker, and his Negro Indian wife, Mildred, or his American Indian wife, Mildred, who were married in the District of Columbia in 1958 and arrested on their return to their native Caroline County, Virginia. We'll say her native Caroline County, Virginia, where she's from. We know he a white construction worker. But anyway, and his Negro Indian wife, Mildred, or his properly American Indian wife, Mildred, who, if you saw her picture, I mean, you can pull it up. It's quite available information about the Loving case. I've did a show about the Loving case. Go check it out. She looks exactly like a lot of your relatives do. The Lovings were charged with trying to evade Virginia's anti-miscegenation law and were given a suspended sentence of 1 year in prison on condition that they leave the state. The couple decided in 1963 to return home and fight banishment with the help of the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU. Warren, speaking for the court, said that under our Constitution, the freedom to marry or not marry a person of another race resides with the individual and cannot be infringed by the state. Anti-miscegenation laws specifically violate the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, he said. As we delve into the Negro Indian, or properly, the American Indian. Do the right thing.